You know, it's just occurred to me that the entire time we've been making videos about off-season shenanigans, signings, trades, etc., we haven't actually gone over the Vancouver Canucks and given a holistic overview as to the signings they've made up to this point. Now, I'm going to save you the entire 10 minutes here and just tell you right off the bat, I like what PATRIK ALLVIN has done. I like the players they got, I like the term, I like the money amounts, I like it. I think the Canucks did a really good job. But in order to supplement this idea, we're going to go over onto The Athletic and talk about this piece made by Thomas Drance from yesterday. Canucks off-season moves. Where are they better, and where are they worse? This article was published yesterday. It's going to be linked in the description if you want to go ahead and read it yourself. Of course, The Athletic is paid for material, so if you don't have it, then you're not going to have access to it. But if we take a look at one of the more supporting ideas in this article, it comes to us in the form of a graphic. Two graphics, actually, that Thomas Drance ended up posting on Twitter in the little promo for the article online. Because this is publicly available on social media, it's not behind a paywall, I'm going to go out there and show off this graphic right here. Thomas Drance says this: the Canucks offseason moves, where are they better, where are they worse? Analyzing the club's offseason moves, posture, depth, and trouble spots using Dom Luszczyszyn's net rating model. Included is a picture of the Vancouver Canucks before and after the offseason, starting out with whom the Canucks had on their team before and what the team looks like now with all the new additions and the subtractions. If you take a look at the Vancouver Canucks before the offseason, their offensive rating was a +3. Their defensive rating, though, was a -3. So their net rating was actually a -5. You can see that for the forwards, the Canucks had a -1 rating for offense, -4 rating for defense, and a net rating of -5. Meanwhile, for the defense, the blue line had a +4 offensive rating, a -3 defensive rating, so a +1 net rating. And then for goaltenders, you can see that Martin and Demko kind of balance each other out, so therefore the number is 0. Now, I think the defensive rating metric is actually incorrectly calculated. You've got -4 and -3, which I think should amount to -7 instead of -8, meaning that the Canucks' net rating, I think, should be -4. But either way, this team is still a negative team in regards to what they had on paper, based off of Dom Luszczyszyn's net rating model. You could see that Elias Pettersson was a +15 player in offense and a +2 player in defense, so his overall rating is +17. You could see that JT Miller, for example, was a +10 offense, -1 defense, so he's totaled a +9. You then have a few other names here: Beauvillier, DiGiuseppe, Dakota Joshua. Some of these players are -10 on offense, like Jack Studnicka, -2 in defense, so he's a -13 net rating. Then you have yourselves a few other guys on the defensive side: Tyler Myers, -3 defense, -4 offense, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, a -5 defense, so net ratings are not great for a lot of these players. However, when you take a look at whom the Canucks added onto their team and who they left off, you got Sheldon Dries, who is no longer a Canuck. You've got Oliver Ekman-Larsson, no longer a Canuck. Kyle Burroughs, no longer a Canuck. Ethan Bear is not included in the new list as well. And if you go over to what the team looks like after the offseason started, their net rating goes from what should have been -4 to -0. Their offensive rating decreased by 1, and the reason this is the case is because it says that Ilya Mikheyev is at +1 offense instead of +2 offense like he was in the before graphic. The Canucks also replaced Sheldon Dries' forward spot with Teddy Bluger, who is also a -7 offensive rating, so he's not really all too great himself in that department. But when it comes to the forwards, there is an increase on defense. Teddy Bluger is a +0 on defense, whereas Sheldon Dries was a -1, bringing the Canucks' total defensive rating for the forwards at -3, which is a tad better than what they had beforehand. Meanwhile, you go over to the defensemen, and this is where things get really different, because you swapped out Bear, Burroughs, and Ekman-Larsson for Carson Soucy, Ian Cole, and Christian Willander. Now, none of these guys are plus offensive rating anythings, but they are a tad better defensively than the former group before the offseason started, which is where the defensive fixes come in. OEL was a -5 defensively, Willander's a -2. Kyle Burroughs and Ethan Bear were both +1s, but so is Soucy and Ian Cole. They have the added benefit of having slightly better offensive rankings than Kyle Burroughs, though. You also have Tyler Myers, who has a slightly improved offensive rating after the offseason began. He's at a -3 rather than a -4. Who knows why that's the case here, why guys like Mikheyev and Myers are a little bit different from before the offseason to after. But either way, the Canucks rating on paper, based off of Dom Luszczyszyn's model, is better. And if you go over to the Canucks sub, they posted the actual quote right here in the comments section. This is what the Athletic article says. First of all, it's important to note that the big picture goal of this exercise isn't to compare the 2022 Canucks roster to the upcoming 2023 roster. We're not comparing how much better the team is than last season's version so much as we're attempting to educate how much of it has improved as a result of the work the team did this summer. The point is to provide a quick snapshot of the Canucks' overall team quality and to try to anticipate where the roster could use some work over the next few months. Second, when we get into the data, you'll notice there is no projection year-over-year improvement from young players currently on the Canucks roster, nor is there any projected diminishment in effectiveness from the team's older players. These projections are already factored into the numbers that you're going to see when we flesh out and compare the teams before and after the offseason glow-up. Then you have yourselves what Thomas Drance writes about the differences. You know how I'd pointed out that some of these guys are a little bit different from before and after? Well, this is what Drance has to say about that. There are 4 players whose projection does change slightly in the before image and the after image. Essentially, the NHL training camp version of Luszczyszyn's model, which he'll use to preview the Canucks season come September and update teams' playoff odds throughout the season, is based on more specific ice time projections. Because we're not specifying ice time projections for this exercise, the model is left to its own devices and makes some of its own assumptions about player usage. For example, the model looks at the quality of Vancouver's blue liners and assumes that Hughes and Hronek will log more ice time next season than they did last year, which gives them a small bump in their offensive rating. It dings Tyler Myers for the opposite reason. Up front, meanwhile, the model looks at Vancouver's bottom 6 and assumes that Vancouver's top line will get more minutes, not realizing that Ilya Mikheyev is likely to play top line minutes at 5-on-5. As such, Mikheyev drops a point in offensive rating when you go from last year to this year, although it's worth noting that the drop isn't all that significant. And so, when it comes to how the team looks, specifically just based off of the analytical data here, the team got better. And I'm assuming, based off of everything we had seen with Ian Cole and Carson Soucy, that these guys are going to come in and they're actually going to have a pretty solid role on this team. They're going to log minutes. They're going to make it so that Tyler Myers doesn't really play as much as he has in the past. He doesn't get overworked. We've said this in prior videos, but when Tyler Myers is at his worst, it's when he's gassed, he's been out there for a minute and a half, and he's clogged in his own zone without any hope of being able to dump the puck out. This happens way too often when Myers is just too tired to continue playing, and he gets hemmed in his own zone. This is why you got these other guys, because you're spreading the load out, you're making it so that Myers isn't overworked as much as he had been in the past, and as a result, the overall metrics of the team look a tad better. Tyler Myers' offensive rating goes up just a little bit because if the model assumes that he's not going to play as much in the offensive zone and Quinn Hughes is, it makes sense why Quinn Hughes' rating is a +12 in the after picture versus the +11 in the before picture. So, putting this graphic back up on the screen here, it is interesting to note how the Canucks team looks on paper from before the offseason until after. I do like the guys that they had gotten because it's going to diversify the load defensively. Soucy and Cole are both defensively minded guys who can chip in offensively once in a while with some nice breakout passes and a few other things. So this team, realistically, is a lot better. Now, am I going to say they're a guaranteed cup contender right away? No, definitely not. You kind of hope that you're able to get more out of the bottom 6 if you're going to even talk about cup contending status. But for what they've done, PATRIK ALLVIN has indeed improved the team, and he's done so in a capacity that does not limit them in the long term. Cole and Soucy didn't get long-term deals with expensive dollar amounts. They got pretty reasonable contract offers, all things considered. So, gone are the days where Jim Benning is handing out 6x5s to Tyler Myers and making big trades for $7 million defensemen that don't play like $7 million defensemen. I know a lot of us are kind of traumatized from that, but based off of what ALLVIN has done with this group, they've been doing a pretty good job, and they improved the team on paper and just in terms of who looks like they're going to play where. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the Canucks, how they've improved in the offseason so far, and what other moves you think they have up their sleeve when it comes to making the team better. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.